Hello, Richard.
How are you, my brother?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So what do you want to talk about today?
I want to talk about why you're wearing a short sleeve shirt with no backward baseball cap.
I just thought I would switch it up today.
Oh.
Okay, what about you with the glasses?
Well, I wore the glasses because it comes with a built-in fake nose, and I wanted to see how the audience would react to it.
Well, I think the glasses are very stylish.
Thank you. These are like from 1958.
Are they really?
Well, no, they're not that old, but they're a good 15 years old.
They're
I broke my other one, so
I like them.
Oh, thanks.
How do you like them?
I like it, because I'm so gray now. You might as well have the total grayness. White skin, gray all there. Yeah.
Dude, you got a gray head of hair. And take that from someone who appreciates hair.
Oh, brother. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Which is something that we should be talking about, like egos, right? We're going to talk a little bit about ego today, and something like.
Yeah. So what our show topic today is going to be: don't worry about the shoulds.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Sweet.
So how life should be, or how it shouldn't be. Any language that begins with that, any thought process with that, it all results in suffering.
And it shows up often on our birthdays, or when someone else gets something that you were hoping to get and they got it instead. On birthdays, for example, when you turn, let's say, 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70, all of those things have different connotations about where we think we should be based on what the culture tells us we should be. And if we're not, we start wondering if there's something wrong with us.
Absolutely. And it's just depressing and just a ton of suffering with it. Did you experience that?
Oh, yeah. I still experience it a lot. For example, I think finances for me is the one that gets me. I always feel when I'm talking with lawyers who are my age, who are retiring and they have a second guest house, or they're doing something magnificent and they have a paid-up house, paid-up car, kids in private schools, no sweat, and they pick up every tab. I always feel a little bit like, well, a lot like I'm second class, that I didn't do the work hard enough, I didn't have the aptitude, I just didn't function as well as they did, and therefore my reward in life is less than theirs, and therefore I am a lesser person. And I think those feelings are natural for people. So the strategy that you have to respond to it is what?
Well, the strategy is to not fall into that trap of I should be where they are, I should be experiencing life like they should be, and just really accepting where you are.
And what's the payoff for accepting, as opposed to maybe using that as motivation to work harder to get what they have?
Well, the payoff is peacefulness, and if that's something that you want to pursue, what they have, then certainly go after it, because you can do so in a peaceful way. Most people don't go about it in a peaceful way because they don't know how to. But there's nothing wrong with wanting nice things, having nice things. The trap comes when you find your identity within those things. Like you identify with them, and that means you're attached to them. And how do you know you're attached? If you don't have them, how do you feel? Do you feel less than? Do you feel not good enough? If you answer those in the affirmative, then that means that you didn't go about it in a peaceful way.
I think it has a lot to do with illusion and what the culture tells us ought to be. You never know what's happening behind somebody else's life from what's presented to you. And often what's presented is precisely the idea of creating envy in the part of the viewer, as opposed to something that's internally wonderful and beautiful. I think we all have to start with the proposition that every person is deserving of love, every person has the capability to give love and to receive it, and every person it's his or her own person that's unique with enormous possibilities and enormous successes just by being where they're at. And then I think the rest is all gravy. The rest is meaningless.
Oh, I completely agree. You know, I lived a lot of my life with the shoulds regarding really material things for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, when I go to someone's house or hear about what someone is driving, oh God, I would love to have a car like that. I should have a car like that. Or to be happy. I should be making this much money, be promoted to this position. All those things that were just should, or the opposite. This shouldn't be happening to me. I shouldn't be going through this tough time. I shouldn't be challenged in this way. I've been a good person. Why is this happening to me? All that noise, that's going on, and again, all of it just produced suffering. And once I started to accept that this is what is, and just really become friendly, as Eckhart Tolle says, come friendly with what is, things start to change. I start to see things differently. And what's interesting is that by seeing things differently and accepting what is, I was able to open myself up for thoughts and possibilities to take intelligent action, to change the circumstance if there was something I could do about it. Otherwise, just let it go.
Yeah, I think that's a great point with Tolle. The idea is that if you want to be happy, really, choose what you have. Choose what, if we're talking about material things, choose what you have. If we're talking about things like you're turning 60 or 70, there's nothing that you can do that's going to change that. And the idea is that you're no longer youthful, or you're no longer capable of attracting the kind of woman or man that you want, and that you should be with a man or a woman. Those things you have to look at to decide, is this something that my heart tells me that is really true, or is it something that I need to be able to show to others that I'm okay? That's a wholly different gig. Those are two completely different things. And I think we have to be very mindful of what we need for ourselves, to make ourselves happy, as opposed to what we think we need to make us look good, which in turn creates a like to us or a love for us, which is really what we're craving, respect and likes, like Facebook likes, and who we are. And that's the ego talking.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with who you are as a fully functioning person.
Another area that for me, that where the shoulds came up for me were my physical abilities in terms of my athletic performance. So when someone would come in, oftentimes I was maybe the fastest, jumped the highest. For my body weight, for my stature, I lifted a lot of weight. And someone would come in who was younger than me, and do it. Now being age 48, I have the privilege of being around some pretty youthful young men who are in their teen years, and these guys are jumping as high as I am, if not higher, and I'm just having to be on top of my ego to really I'm always encouraging them and telling them what a great job they're doing and affirming their athletic prowess. I'm always doing that, so that's happening, and that's authentic. That's natural.
I've seen you do that. That's really
and
great.
Because there's no envy, like, oh my God, they shouldn't be able to do that. I'm the only one that should do that. I don't have that going on. But but internally, there was a time in which I would say to myself, like, when did I lose a step? This aging thing, that's not supposed to happen to me for another 20 years. Why is it happening now? And just all that stuff and just all the angst over it. And why is this happening? I'm doing everything right. I'm eating right. I'm getting my sleep. I'm working out every day. Why is this happening? And just accepting, this is what it is. And once I started to do that, I got a lot of peace with this physical form. Mm-hmm. And what I also noticed, that when I was having that should conversation about what my body should be doing, and the conversation about what shouldn't be happening right now, when I was having that conversation, let me tell you what was missing. Gratitude for what my body was giving me. It was still able to be mobile, to be functional, to help me, to serve others in my volunteer role at Mayo within our community. It was still giving me all of that.
Yeah, that's so true.
But I was ignoring all of that, and fixated on a time that had passed. And so I wasn't able to be my full self and be present with the people that are around me, to honor, the universe and to be grateful for what I do have. So what I learned is, gratitude is always the answer.
I think that's right. And I think a lot of our acquisitions and a lot of ego-based behavior is fear-based. We're afraid that if we don't protect ourselves, or that we don't have all of these accolades, or we don't have these great friends, or this beautiful BMW, that we're nothing. And it's fear-based that does that. Now, here's the cool thing. I think psychologically, if you have a true sense of gratitude, there's no room for fear. If you're very grateful, fear doesn't show up. So one of the things that helped me get out of my crazy materialism was the idea of meditating and sort of letting things just flow out, and not focusing on anything except the moment, the breath. And after a while, I'm talking weeks and months, after a while it got to the point where I started to think to myself, man, living is enough. This is really a great gig. Whoa, holy God, I got legs, I can see,
No doubt.
And all of that. And then when you start looking further, it's not only your own self, it's the idea that you have love to give and love to receive, and you know what that feels like with your kids and your colleagues and your relatives and all of the rest. Those two things, gratitude, the realization that you have enough, and that love is really the whole binding power of it all, that's really the ballgame. The rest of it is all fluff, and you're, I think, wasting. The ego's always trying to make that the game.
Just want more.
Always want more. And it's like saying, if you give into the ego, it's like saying, universe, thanks for the gift of life, but geez, it's the wrong color, my legs are too short, I want a bigger,
Right.
It's like, it's nobody likes an ingrate, and
Right.
that's what you become.
So the universe isn't like
That's
that.
right.
It's
Hell
ignoring
with
you.
you. I know.
It's ignoring you.
That's right, that's right.
No, exactly. You said something there that was triggered a thought, which is that when I was striving and I was, the designer suits all the time and the fancy car and all these other things that I thought that I should have because of what they represented, as well as how I thought it made me look to people and things like that. What I found is, in terms of the kind of energy that I give off, the vibe that I give off, I'm often acknowledged for this peacefulness, this spirit of gratitude that I have every day. Now that I really try to practice not having attachment and living in a life of what should be this way and what shouldn't be, but this whole kind of loving kindness that I'm trying to express with everything I do and say when as I go through life. People are attracted to that,
Yeah.
which is interesting. And again, it's not attracted to me because that's our ego, but I'm just holding the space for those things to come through.
Yeah.
Like I'm clearing the conversation about the shoulds and shouldn'ts. I'm clearing attachment so that loving kindness and peacefulness can flow through me and I can better serve. So that's what I really got, all the things that I thought, led to a great life or a great life experience. That just led to suffering. This other way of just kind of accepting it, man, like really, this is, like you say, it's a cool gig.
It really is, and I think if you could do two things, the gratitude meditation that you're talking about, or gratitude, I interpret that as a gratitude meditation because I can sense when I'm in that moment where I almost get goose pimples that I'm so grateful about all of the things that I have, that there's no room for fear and there's no room for wanting more.
Right.
And it makes me feel like I know that I have enough. If you can get to that point, I think you're able better to monitor when the ego starts taking over, and you can say, whoa, that's not cool, that's not really where I want to be. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting is that once you get to that point, the circumstances of things that happen to you still impact you. People saying nasty things, or you don't get the raise, or you lose a case, those things still impact, and they always will. You'll never be able to, I think, not have an initial negative feeling about it. But if you can take a breath and step back and say, that's interesting.
Yeah.
This is kind of something that happened in my life. It shows that I'm alive. It shows that I am experiencing life, and this is an experience that is part of the richness, the panoply, the painting of my life. And it's not good or bad, it just is.
Right. Accept that.
Accept that. Acceptance is great. I love that.
It really is. So I think when you're accepting, you're not saying should or shouldn't. It's just what is, and then if you can have gratitude for it, you're on to something.
And one other thing too, and that is, I think the big key is that, as Keith experienced, and I have in my own life too, when you don't search after stuff, which is what the ego is wanting you to do, people are attracted to that because they want that in themselves. You know, someone who is totally cool at 65 being alone or being not married or living in their van, that's interesting to people. It's not usually people who are going to say, I don't want anything to do with that person. And if they say that, perhaps you don't want to have anything to do with them either.
Right.
But the idea is that if you're yourself and you totally accept your
Right.
circumstance and you realize that you have enough and you're able to love and give it and receive it, I think that's the ball game.
I agree. Rick, for you, the people that you found to be the coolest cats, I mean, who were people that you wanted to be around, I mean, were they like the big title, the big house, the big car? Were they attached to those things?
Some of them, yeah, some of them, I have to say yes. But I kind of look at life maybe a little differently than most people. I look at everybody as having something to teach me.
Right, right.
And so if I meet a guy who's got a really huge ego and a great house and all of the, you know, the superfluous or surface things, I'm thinking, well, this guy really has a tremendous way of making a contribution to the world. What is it? What did he do? What's so valuable that the world has rewarded him in so much? I want to learn that. He's superior to me in that area. I want to learn that. But I take your point. I think your point is more that none of that has anything to do, because if that guy went on a camping trip with you and I, or a ski trip, he would probably be insufferable for 2 days.
Right, right.
You know, he wouldn't be the kind of guy you and I would want to hang with.
Yeah, I think for me, those other things are just incidental. Because I know some amazing people
Yeah.
that, in terms of material things, they really live a minimalistic lifestyle. They don't have a lot of material things, but they're just super kind, loving. They're centered. They're peaceful. And then I know people that happen to have a lot of things that cost a lot of money, that are luxuries, but they're also peaceful. So one happens to have things, the other one happens not to. But neither person is defined by what they have or don't have. It's really who they are inside in their practice.
Sure.
That's what I found for myself.
Yeah, and I think you have to take people as they appear. I think one of the things that we have a terrible time managing in this culture is we're always trying to figure out if somebody has an ulterior motive.
Mhm.
Like, am I getting the real Keith?
Right.
And so you're always looking for things that are a little off, and I think that's terribly cynical.
Right.
And here's a great topic for a good show, but it leads into the idea of having a life that's based on optimism and gratitude as one that's based on lack and cynicism. I think that's to me, that's the big contention in this period. It's not politics. It's not left and right to me. It's people who are optimistic versus people who are pessimistic.
Right.
People who are cynical versus people who are grateful and willing to make changes.
I totally agree.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a different way of conceiving it, but
But you're exactly right.
I think it makes you happier.
You know, with the example I gave with someone who has material things and the other person that doesn't, neither party is attached to them. One just happens to and the other one doesn't. But what's at the core of it is a person who has very little is grateful for just grateful, and the other person who has a lot is grateful for the lot that they have.
Yeah.
But what's a common thread that weaves both of them together or connects both of them is they're both grateful. Both grateful. And there's no ego in either party. At least that's what's attractive to me.
That's right. So if we want to avoid getting involved in ego-based behavior, which is going to be detrimental, guarantee you, no matter who you read, whatever psychologist, philosopher, spiritual leader you read, the ego is always at the base of the problem, always, because it involves greed, it involves lust, it involves cheating, it involves betrayal, it involves a lot of things that are fake that end up hurting you. So the way to get out of it, I think, is by recognizing, and you said it, accepting and being grateful for what you have and not giving a damn about the rest of the world.
Exactly.
At least how they look at you in that sense.
Exactly. And when you do that, you're no longer worried about the shoulds.
And now it's time for us to have oatmeal. That'll be our next show.
Oh, I'm all about the oatmeal.
Oh, we're gonna have some oatmeal together right now.
Thanks, Rick.
I love you, buddy.
Love you, man. Thank you.